Inside the SCIF.
So there was another crash that took place, this time in January 23rd of 1974, and this supposedly took place in the Berwyn Mountains in Wales. It happened at shortly after 8:30 p.m.
Mm-hmm.
There was a loud explosion that was heard by all the local people who lived there. The witnesses who claimed they saw something said that they saw an orange glow coming from the area where the blast seemed to be coming from.
Okay. Well, like the blast.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it could have been an explosion, and they
yeah,
saw the light, right?
Confusing me.
So a police officer on duty heard the blast, and he saw the glow in the mountainside, and thought it was a result of a large fire.
Oh, like before, like they thought it
Right.
was a
Right,
mountain fire. Yeah.
Right, exactly. One of the residents stated that he saw a bright red light in the area, and there were several white lights moving below it.
Okay.
And many of the locals, they called the police and reported that they'd seen a UFO before the ground shook. So there were calls coming in before this explosion happened.
Wow.
That people were seeing things flying in the sky, or lights in the sky. Before the explosion, there were two truck drivers driving separate trucks who reportedly saw a large cigar-shaped UFO flying over Bala Lake. And then there was a group of fishermen who reportedly saw a number of UFOs emerge from the Irish Sea and take off.
What we call those again? The
USOs.
USOs. Yeah.
Unidentified submerged objects. Right. So there was a farmer by the name of Hugh Edwards, and he stated that he saw a brightly lit UFO. So he said he saw a UFO the size of a bus, and it came over the mountain, and it crossed over the roadway. Then it dipped, or tilted, and then it went into the valley.
Oh.
And there was a woman who was a nurse. She heard the explosion and tried to get to the area where she heard it to see if anyone might be hurt, because she's a nurse.
Right.
She might be able to assist, right?
Support. Yeah, she's.
So she had her daughter in the vehicle with her, and she got closer, and she saw an orange pulsating light coming from the area.
Oh.
And that there were lights that she thought at first were rescuers with flashlights.
Right.
But she said that the area is so difficult to get through that the lights were moving so fast that there's no way there were people climbing that area. It's too rocky and difficult. There's these lights were moving around. There's no way people could climb up that fast. And she said some of the lights were going in a zigzag pattern up and down the mountainside. So she thought it was very unusual.
Right.
But she said that later there was a large spherical red-orange object that didn't seem to have any doors or windows on it. Her two daughters who were in the car with her, before I said there was one daughter, two of her daughters were with her, and they saw the object and were terrified.
Oh, I'm sure as a kid.
Because the girls were so scared, she decided instead of staying there to see if someone was hurt, she's got to take her girls back home.
Get out.
An interesting thing is that reportedly there was a British Army unit that was sent to set up a base camp in that area prior to this explosion or whatever this sound was that they heard. They were under the impression that they were going to this area, which is a very secluded area, to do a military drill. That there was some kind of thing that they were going to be part of. There was going to be other units there or something like that. So almost immediately after they set up their camp, they were ordered to go to a certain coordinate. It was a 5-man unit, and when they arrived to where they were supposed to go, they still thought that they were part of some kind of military training exercise or something like that.
Right.
And they said that when they arrived, they were ordered to load 2 rectangular crates onto a military flatbed truck. So as soon as they arrived, you know, somebody of higher rank said, "Hey, you guys pick up these 2 crates,
Right,
load them
them.
onto this vehicle." Once they were loaded onto the vehicle, those men were ordered to drive this vehicle to Porton Down facility in Wiltshire, England, and not to stop on the way for any reason whatsoever.
Right.
So these men had been out in the wilderness for a while, and they were kind of tired and hungry and thirsty. And so along the way, they decided, you know what? No one's going to know we're going to stop and get a drink or
Right.
something. So they pulled into some little local, you know, store or whatever and got out of the vehicle. And when they did that, there was another vehicle that was nearby. They said that the man got out of the vehicle, came up to them, flashed a very high-ranking military ID, and said, "Get back in the vehicle. You were told not to stop."
So they were followed. Yeah,
They were
of course.
followed.
Of course they were.
And then they were told, "Do not stop until you get to this location." So there was an unnamed military source that stated that when they arrived, screens were set up around the vehicle to block. They pulled in,
Right.
and as soon as they got there,
They blocked
the people came out and put screens around the vehicle, so you couldn't see what was going
inside.
on.
Yeah, yeah. When they on the
Right?
right pit or
This was set up while they were offloading whatever these crates were.
Yeah.
So these guys who drove this truck there, they were like so curious, like, what is in these crates that all this craziness is
Right, of
going
course,
on?
like,
So they said there were gaps in between where these, you know,
whatever.
yeah,
tarps or
whatever they put up
yeah.
was. So they were peeking through the cracks, and they said inside these crates were some type of decontamination chambers or some kind of chambers of some kind, and they could see inside these chambers that there was some type of what looked like alien beings inside these 2 chambers, and that they were both in one. In one chamber there were 2.
Like a tank. How do you
Yeah.
call those?
Like a hyperbaric chamber
yeah,
of
or
some
deprivation.
type.
Yeah, whatever.
Right, right. He also said that these creatures were what we typically know as the small grays,
Oh, really?
like
So
the same description.
So
Yeah,
the
big
black
heads,
eyes,
small,
big heads, small
gray skin,
Yeah.
large black eyes. There are people that say there was a heavy military presence in the area that wherever this supposedly happened.
And that's in the UK. It's not the
This
US.
is in Wales, yes.
Yeah.
So the official report came back from the military, and they say that the incident was an earthquake that measured 3.5 on the Richter scale,
Richter scale.
that just happened to coincide with a meteor shower and a strike, and a meteor shower and the meteor strike at the epicenter of the earthquake. So it was a coincidence
Yeah, of course.
that these 2 things happened. There was an earthquake, and a meteor just happened to hit the epicenter of where this earthquake.
You know, and at the time, it was
Emanated
so
from.
easy to make people believe whatever because they didn't have internet. So you can't really research.
And you
unless
see an official telling you something, and you believe them,
yeah.
right? So
Yeah, I
one
guess.
final note about this particular case was there were black unmarked helicopters that were in that area for a period of days after this supposed crash. So I have there was a Freedom of Information Act request,
Okay.
you know, from the Maritime and Coast Guard agency.
Okay.
And so the person asked about this particular thing, and, you know, they're saying on this date that there was a military exercise in that area. So here is the actual documentation of that military exercise. Okay, and here's a newspaper talking about those mystery helicopters.